Okay, so today we're talking about culture and morale and how do you handle conflict with your guys. You're going to have drama at times, you're going to have conflict with some of your teammates. It's inevitable, but what do you do about it? So, think about in this business, you've got typically two, sometimes a third or even fourth depending on the job size, but you'll have at least two people per crew in a truck driving around together 8 hours, 10 hours in a day. Now, multiply that times 3 to 5 days a week because the crews will kind of shift around. These guys spend a lot of one on one time together. So I don't think that's uncommon. I think you're going to see a lot of that when you spend that much time with someone. You're going to have some conflict here and there. But let me push this over to you, Davis. I've got a lot I could say on this topic, but what do you think is the best way to handle conflict specifically when you have drama going on with a couple of your guys? What is your role as an owner? How do you intervene? Do you intervene or do you let this play out on its own volition?
Well, I would start with getting all sides, top, bottom, left, and right to every story. I'm the guy that always believes in context is everything, and maybe that's to a fault. Meaning, I don't see black and white all the time. I see gray a lot, and again, that could be a problem in some scenarios. Facts and truth and what's not true in the world, all that stuff. But when it comes to turmoil internally with your guys, your gals, your employees, your teammates, I always start with just getting all sides of every story. So if it's just between two people, sitting down and talking with one, sitting down and talking with another, preferably face to face if you have the ability to do that. If not, face call, FaceTime, video call, whatever. Um, and then from there, determine kind of what the next step is, which for me is usually let's get to the solution the quickest, which is sitting all parties down and hashing it out. But again, if you circle back to the context thing, you need to understand what's going on with each person. Do they have problems at home that they're dealing with that, if you get them in the same room with somebody, things may bubble up and it spirals out of control? Do they just have beef together where like they just don't like each other? They don't like looking at each other. So like that's a different thing that you probably don't want to bring, two lions into a closed room and just hope for the best. Like that's probably also not smart. So my knee jerk reaction is, oh, let's just sit down and talk it out and get everything on the table and be very candid, not a talk it out like, oh, let's just check the box from a corporate perspective, but talk it out like, let's get to the meat and potatoes and do it quickly and move on because we're all grown-ups and professionals here. But if that's not a viable option because of whatever context you have about your business and your guys, then don't do that. Maybe you do need to keep it as a one-on-one. I'm the CEO, I'm the business owner, I'm the manager, and you're the employee. We're going to talk. And then I'll also go over here and do my talk with this person that you're having conflict and, figure out a way to communicate amongst all parties where you don't have to get in the same room. But obviously communication is at the top of the chain there for me. Um, to take it further than that, I think empathy, if you approach that situation with empathy for all parties, even the one party or multiple parties that folks are saying we don't like, or uh, this over here about the business really sucks. Usually this is about people, but empathy for that person. You don't know necessarily what's going on in their life with, their wife or their husband, their kids, their extended family, their parents. I mean, maybe they just had a death in the family. Maybe somebody's critically ill. Somebody had an accident. Maybe their kid is on the verge of, being diagnosed with something. You have no clue what's going on. Maybe they've run into financial troubles. And so having empathy and a willingness to sit down and listen, I think is incredibly important prior to getting all parties together to figure out kind of how do we move forward from here. So that's kind of how I would start it.
Yeah, I read a book years ago. I've probably mentioned this before, but it was called "Don't Fire Them, Fire Them Up." And the whole premise was try to work with your people, even if they're problematic, but try to work with them and make them into that superstar versus going, you're not working out, we're going to let you go. That's the most common reaction that most companies have is this person doesn't fit into this box. And so we're going to let that person go. And whatever that box is, sometimes it's, well, this is very sophisticated what we do. For other people, it's simply a matter of the culture. They don't make this place more fun. Who knows? But I think reading that book really helped shape my perspective on what to do with employees, especially the problematic ones, the ones that cause the issues. And the reason is because the whole premise was around get to know them, really invest in them, have a friendship if you can, have a friendship, a relationship with each of your employees. And the reason that's so important is because everyone wants to feel valued. No matter where you go, the most important thing that people say they want at their job, it's not simply money, it's not simply the title and the recognition, as much as they want to feel like their voice matters. They want to feel valuable. So I would start there and say, we as a company, we always invest in our guys and try to get to know them on a personal HR compliant way. We try to really get to know our guys and make sure they understand that we care about them. It's not simply you're here to do a job. A lot of companies operate that way. A lot of managers operate that way. And I do understand why. A lot of it is a protection mechanism. I remember going through that as a young business owner when I was 22, 23, and having employees for the first time. I didn't want to get too close, especially because my age, I was the same age or really close to all my employees. And I felt like I can't get too close. I can't be too friendly because then they will blur those lines. And I need them to respect me as their boss. And I remember, in fact, my father-in-law telling me, you got to come in with your foot has got to be a little heavy when you first come in, whether you're the owner or you're simply the VP of this company. You got to come in with your foot on the pedal a little bit so that your people know to take you serious. And I get where he's coming from. I just disagree with it. I don't like that style. I like the style where people know that I'm not here to simply posture. I'm not here to simply, beat my chest. Hey, I'm the boss. To me, the minute you have to say that and take that position, you've lost. You shouldn't ever have to remind your guys, hey, I'm the manager. I'm the boss. I'm the owner. They should respect you enough to where that never comes out of your mouth. So I take the approach of invest in your people, get to know them, show them that you care about them. And as John Maxwell says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Another John Maxwell quote is, if you think you're the leader, but no one's following, you're simply taking a walk. And remember that. To me, that's just such a great, if you had to encapsulate the qualities of a great manager, just think about that. How many managers out there or owners, they're the title, right? And they are quick to throw that out there. I'm the owner. We're going to do it my way. I've heard those people. It is obnoxious. What you should be doing is investing in your people so that they know that you care about them. And if you do that, and if you show that I'm here for you and I'm here to make you better, they will follow you to the gates of hell. I have seen that time and time again. I still have relationships with my guys from 20 years ago, from that very first business. And that's why, because I love them. I invest in them. Not just money, but I mean my time. I get to know them. I want to know, how's your wife? How's your kids? What's the future look like? Oh, I'm pursuing this other career. Good for you. Awesome. How can I help you? I'm not here to keep someone here indefinitely, especially if this is not their cup of tea. But while you are here, I want to make this the best experience possible. You just never know when that person, it may be 20 years, when it may come full circle, and now they come back and say, hey, I missed this place. I learned so much. I want more of it. You just never know. And that's the approach I always try to take, is really invest in your guys. But let me get back to drama for 1 second. So if you have drama going on between a couple of your guys, what do you do about it? Do you take the Phil Jackson approach that he was notorious for, of just, kind of laid back, hey, these guys are going to work it out themselves, they're grown men? Or you take more of a hands-on approach, more of Jocko? Do you take that Jocko Willink approach where you want to get your guys together and say, hey, what's going on here? Right? In the military, you can't have your guys, especially at that high level, you can't have your guys hating each other and then you're going out on a very, very, difficult, challenging, dangerous mission, and yet you got two guys that hate each other. They've got to have each other's back. So being able to resolve these things quickly is the name of the game. So what I try to always do is talk to the first guy one-on-one, then talk to the next guy one-on-one, and then triangulate what's really happening, and then set up a meeting with those two guys. So now it's the three of us. I'm going to be the moderator here. And then I try to get everyone together and just start like this. How did we get here? Like, why do you think we're here? Let me get your position, James. Let me get your position, TJ. And then really just let them vent. Well, I have found that is the best way to resolve conflict with your guys, no matter what it is, unless they are literally, hey, this guy cheated on with my wife. He cheated. I get it. You probably want to just let one of those guys go so that you don't have any murders happening on the clock. But otherwise, it normally is one of those things that once you get everyone in the same room and can just talk rationally, especially when you're there as the boss, the manager, things do tend to start settling down, and then you can have a normal, rational conversation. So that's been my approach.
Yeah, there's these weird times in our relationship, Ted, where you'll say something and I'm like, this has to be some sort of blood relationship because I literally wrote down, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care 10 seconds before you said it. Anyways,
That is
sidebar.
hilarious. Wow.
I think, yeah, you've hit it. So the key is care first. And there's so many business owners, and it doesn't even have to be business owners, right? There's a lot of large organizations where the CEO can't get involved at this level. Like the Walmart CEO isn't going to get involved with the employees in Mooresville, North Carolina, Walmart, where two employees have a conflict. But at some level, you have to care. And if you're so hands off as a manager or the overseer of people at whatever the level is, then it's just, you're always going to have conflict, which leads to attrition, which leads to costs. For one, higher costs for you, but also just a toxic environment that you're creating. So you have to be able to invest the time. And I think I always come back to Gary Vee, probably mainly because I've watched most of his stuff. I mean, that he's kind of who I consume most online. And I have to imagine that walking in that office every day, people just feel comfortable. They feel like they've walked into their next home because they've got a boss out in the corner office that is almost never in the corner office because he's circulating, saying, "Hey to everybody, how you doing?" Like I'm genuinely, caring about what you're doing today, Denise, and what you have going on in your life. Are you happy here? So like you have to care. That's the care factor. But again, context is everything. And so, yeah, if there's no black and white here of how to handle the situation rather than principles, which is the first one is care. The second one is to get away from, just letting it linger. And I don't think that letting grown men and women work things out, especially in the workplace, is typically the best way to go. Maybe you give it a day or two to see if they can work it out. But if this is something that's lingered for more than 2 days and it's gone on for weeks or months, then you have to address it as a manager. I think one of the other issues to point out with just the year in which the times we live in is that a lot of conflict is bubbled up over electronic communication, which almost always has a misconstrued level of emotion tied to it. Like, candidly, I'm a very emotionless person on texting.
What? Really?
Electronic communication. So a lot of what I say can be misconstrued as, oh, this guy's being harsh or cold-blooded or doesn't care about me, when in reality, I'm more so concerned with saving my fingers and the livelihood of them. And I just want to get to the point as quickly as possible and make sure that we're all moving in the right direction efficiently. And so we don't have a bunch of back and forth over texting or whatever. Like, let's just figure this thing out quickly. Let's remove emotion from this conversation via text. And so that, to me, is why sitting down with folks individually or as groups to quote unquote, hash out whatever the issue is the best way. Because typically whenever you do that, I've been involved in more of those scenarios where it's worked out for the better for everybody than the opposite, which is, somebody got fired or had to get let go, or we ended up throwing down and people started, throwing fists. Usually what happens in those scenarios is a misunderstanding comes to light and you work it out and you end up hugging at the end of the day and you walk away and everything's great and beautiful. Not always the case, because you could have a toxic person that at their core, folks don't like them. They don't like working with them, whatever the case may be. But that's the key is getting face to face. And if that's not possible, like if you've built an organization that's national or global, and you've got somebody in San Francisco that's having conflict with somebody in Raleigh, maybe sitting face to face isn't viable. But getting them on a video phone call and being a moderator in that, just so you can see people, see the emotion, all that type of stuff, usually lends to a more positive experience and a more positive outcome for everybody.
That's great, man. I would say one of the greatest attributes of a manager. You show me a world-class manager where their people are like, man, I love that guy. I love that lady. I would follow them anywhere. And it is their ability to just connect. That to me is at the top of the list. If you have an ability to connect with the individual, I'll give you an example. My conversations, my interactions, maybe even my body language to a degree is going to be different when I'm with Eric versus Tyler versus Levi versus, TJ, you name it. I try to adapt to that person. And the only way you can really do that authentically is by getting to know them. That's why it matters. That's why you need to take time as a manager, as an owner. Don't ever feel like you're too good. I'm the big boss. I hate that. I cannot stand when owners and managers have this mindset like they're better. If you don't want people to talk to you a certain way, don't talk to your people that way. If you would not want someone to take that, puff up their chest position, well, I'm the manager, just do what I say. If you don't like it when people talk to you that way, you should never talk to your people that way. It's about respect. The other thing, though, is I try to exhaust every option when dealing with conflict. Right. So let me back up. A great manager connects with their people. If you're having drama with your people and you can't seem to get them to connect, and so now you jump in, right? So you are now trying to resolve those issues or help facilitate it. If that still isn't working, the next thing that I will try to do, if there's really an issue and I feel like maybe this person has some anger issues, maybe they just are, they're struggling with something that we can't readily identify or fix, right here at work, I will get them signed up in counseling if they will let me. Now, I know some people would hear that and go, really? Yeah, really, really. Because I want to hire someone that's going to be with us for life. And I know that sounds wacky to a lot of people. Like, there's a healthy level of attrition. You're right, there is. But if I have a good employee, I do want to try to keep them as long as possible. Maybe not for life, but as long as possible. Why wouldn't you? Now, again, you may not be able to meet their demands financially one day as they grow and they have a bigger family. Maybe you're not in that position. I get it. But I still think you should try. And that's where it comes in of trying to invest in your people to really understand what makes them them, because everyone is their own person. So if you can't get through to them as a manager, send them to counseling if they'll let you to break through some of those areas. So if someone has anger issues, you can't fix that, Davis. I'm not a professional counselor, but a professional counselor probably can. And if they can't, at least what they can do is they can get them to break through some of those things that maybe they're struggling with their coworkers or me or you. So that would be step 2 for me in terms of dealing with conflict. Number 1 is you go and talk to them one-on-one. Actually, that'd be step 3. Step 2 is you get all the parties in the room together and you talk through it. If that still isn't resolving it, there's still this kind of pent up anger, then step 3 is I try to get them into counseling of some form, whether it's I'll bring the counselor to the office or vice versa. You go see the counselor, free, we'll pay for it, because that is a real thing, especially nowadays. You just said social media or texting, digital. It's wreaking havoc in a lot of people. And it's creating a lot of communication problems. And I have found that a good counselor can help them see that and hopefully work through it. So there's steps 1, 2, and 3. Now, what do you do if step 3 doesn't work? If you've had counseling, you've brought them in for that person, and they're still problematic. Again, going back to that book, don't fire them up. I try not to fire people. And it's not simply I don't like to fire them, although I don't. But I don't want to fire someone if I don't have to. It, to me, is far more difficult to let go of someone and have to start from scratch than it is to take that person that already knows the company, they already know the system, and to simply make them better. Right? So that's my approach. But if that doesn't work, if I have now done all those steps and it doesn't work, then unfortunately, I'm going to have to let them go. But let me say this last thing, then it's your turn. I try to always, unless that person ties my hands or is like, I'm out of here, which I don't think has ever happened. what I try to always do an exit interview. If I'm going to let someone go, even if they say, hey, today's my last day or I'm turning in my 2 weeks, if they will give it to me, I still want to sit them down and say, let's talk about what led to you leaving or us pushing you out. I want to understand what happened so that we can get better in the process. And hopefully there's some learnings for you as well. I think that also is part of our culture that makes us unique and special, is that we really do care about our guys. We've had very little turnover in almost 6 years. And I think that's why, because our guys know we love them. We care about them. We get them Christmas presents. We take them out to dinner. We do all those things because we care about them. It's more than just you're a junk removal person. You're a part of the junk raider family, and we want to prove that to you. So I know that was a lot. Over to you. What are your thoughts, though, in terms of if you've tried everything and you can't get the resolution you're looking for, what do you do?
What I was going to say was around hiring people for the lifetime of your company. That's the goal, but knowing realistically that they likely won't stay with you forever.
Sure.
But your goal should be to hire and bring on people that you really enjoy, and you want them to stick around for as long as possible. But when it is time for them to move on, because they've capped out maybe at your organization, there's nothing left for you to offer them financially, upward movements, whatever the case may be. What you've done throughout that entire process, if you've treated them right, and back to your point about connection, is you've hired a brand ambassador that if you could help them go and get their next gig or wherever it is that they want to go, if you've helped them as their previous employer get there rather than just kicking them out the door and being pissed, you've now hired somebody that's going to speak so highly of Junk Raider to anybody else they come in contact with, even though they don't work there anymore. And that value is immeasurable. And then back to your point about just you've done everything with the employee, you've clearly got a problem. What's the next? You've sat everybody down, everybody's chatted, you've given it time, nothing's changed. What do you do here? Obviously, you've got a bad egg and you need to get rid of it. But I feel like as a kind of a last straw, as a last ditch effort, I think about just the sales tactics that I've learned from other sales folks online in real life over the years, and a simple statement of what can I do to ensure your success here? Basically put the ball in their court. Like you've hashed everything out. You've put all your cards on the table. And that statement is very much, I'm putting the ball in your court. And I'm letting you know that I feel like we're kind of at the finish line here. We're at the last leg. If something doesn't change, then the next thing is you're no longer here. But I don't want to make that decision if there is something lingering that you believe could be changed here, whether that's me, your coworker, something within yourself, something about this organization, your role. Let us know what that can be. And so it's a sales tactic, because when you're selling whatever it is that you're selling, home service software, home services in general, IT software, IT enterprise, business process outsource stuff, consulting services, putting the ball in the customer's court more often than not is the best sales tactic that the best sales reps use at every turn. They're not talking the most. The customer is talking the most. And so there's ways to get a customer or a prospect talking so that you can uncover the real issues, and you can use that type of model within your own organization, within your own families, within your own relationships to really figure out what's going on, and beyond that, build a deeper connection. Because at the end of the day, you want deep connections and relationships all over the place, all over the world, internally, externally, with your customers, with your friends, with your family, whatever. And so when I think about, we've come to a head and we're kind of at the last leg here, I'm putting the ball in your court very respectfully and very, I hope that there's something here that you might mention that we can drill down and say, okay, no, that's the root issue. That's what we can go fix together and potentially avoid a catastrophe here. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You hopefully mutually part ways on good terms, and you move on to the next person. But not every egg that you bring into the basket is going to be a good egg. There's going to be some rotten ones, and the key is finding those early and getting them out so that they don't spread their toxicity throughout the organization.
Yeah, totally agree, man. That's great feedback. Well, Davis, we are just under 30 minutes. I think we said we wanted to go a little shorter this time, which we barely did. Maybe next week we'll get a 15 to 20 minute one out. But hope you guys got something good out of this. We will see you next time. Let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Bye.